History remembers him only as a broken prisoner, a shadow condemned to roll a colossal, jagged boulder for all eternity. But before the stone, before the mountain, and before the heavy silence of his curse, Sisyphus was the most dangerous man alive. He was a king who looked at the golden palaces of Olympus and didn't see masters to be worshipped. He saw marks to be outsmarted. Sisyphus, the founder of Corinth, possessed a mind that cut through divine law like a razor. He knew that the gods thrived on secrets, and in his world, secrets were the only currency that truly mattered. He was a man who understood that power isn't just in the lightning bolt, but in the knowledge of where that bolt is aimed. One sweltering afternoon, while standing on the high, sun-drenched battlements of his citadel, Sisyphus witnessed something no mortal was ever meant to see. The mighty Zeus, king of the gods, spiriting away the beautiful nymph Aegina in the form of a massive, golden eagle. Most mortals would have fallen to their knees in terror, praying to the heavens to forget what they had witnessed, fearing the wrath of the thunderer. But Sisyphus didn't tremble. He simply smiled. He saw an opportunity not for himself, but for his city. He traded this divine secret to the girl's father, the river goddess Olympus, in exchange for an eternal spring of fresh, cold water for the thirsty streets of Corinth. In that single, calculated act of defiance, Sisyphus chose the survival of his mortal kingdom over the fragile ego of a god. And in that moment, the silent, invisible war between a human king and the heavens truly began. Zeus, consumed by a cold and thunderous fury at being exposed by a mere human, could not let such insolence go unpunished. He summoned Thanatos, the pale, winged god of death, and ordered him to drag Sisyphus to the sunless, echoing pits of Tartarus, where no light ever reaches and no hope ever grows. When death arrived in the royal chambers of Corinth, the air turned to ice and the torches flickered into darkness. But Sisyphus was prepared. He didn't beg for mercy, and he didn't run into the night. Instead, he greeted Thanatos with a cup of wine and marveled at the silver shackles the god carried, the chains that had bound every king and beggar since the dawn of time. Such exquisite, terrifying craftsmanship, Sisyphus mused, his eyes gleaming like daggers in the shadows. But surely, a god as ancient and powerful as you doesn't need such heavy toys to claim a mere man? Tell me, great Thanatos, how do these intricate locks even function? Could you show me, so I may admire the genius of the gods one last time before I depart? In an act of supreme, blinding arrogance, Thanatos stepped into his own chains to demonstrate their perfection. Click! The silver locks snapped shut with a sound that echoed through the halls like a death knell. The god of death was now a prisoner, bound and gagged in a mortal's basement. For years, the natural order of the universe was shattered. Battles were fought on the plains of Greece, but no blood was shed that led to the grave. The sick grew thin and pale, but they did not pass. The elderly grew weary of the sun, but they never reached the end of their journey. Sisyphus had achieved the impossible. He had stopped the ticking clock of the universe, and for a few golden, defiant years, humanity was immortal. The silence of the graveyards was a threat to the very foundations of Olympus. While Sisyphus toasted to his own brilliance in Corinth, the gods were losing their minds. Ares, the brutal god of war, was the most furious of all. He rode into battles across the plains of Greece, swinging his spear and spilling rivers of blood, only to find that no soldier would stay down. Men with wounds that should have ended them stood back up, their eyes hollow, their souls trapped in broken bodies. The cosmic balance was hemorrhaging. Finally, Ares discovered the hidden cellar in Sisyphus's palace. With a roar that leveled the city's walls, he tore the silver shackles asunder and freed the pale, trembling Thanatos. The god of death was released, and his hunger was now 1,000 times greater. Sisyphus was finally dragged down, his soul shivering as it crossed the dark, freezing waters of the river Styx. But even as the ferryman Charon demanded his coin, Sisyphus was already weaving his next web of lies. He had whispered a final, chilling command to his wife: "Do not bury my body. Do not place a coin in my mouth. Throw my flesh to rot unhonored in the mud of the city streets like common filth." Standing before Persephone, the iron-hearted queen of the dead, Sisyphus fell to his knees. He didn't beg for his life. He begged for his dignity. He claimed his wife was a godless, wicked woman who had denied him the sacred rites of passage. "Let me return to the sun for just 3 days," he pleaded, his voice cracking with a sorrow he did not feel. "Let me punish her for her insolence and arrange my proper funeral so my soul may rest in peace. I swear by the dark, unbreakable waters of the Styx, I will return to your side." Persephone, moved by a grief she believed was genuine, allowed the trickster to leave. Sisyphus stepped out of the shadows of the underworld, took a deep, agonizingly sweet breath of the salty Corinthian air, and simply stayed. He lived for decades more, raising his glass to the stars and openly mocking the gods every time the sun rose over the horizon. He lived until his hair turned to ash and his skin to parchment, until old age finally claimed what no god could steal by force. This time, there were no more tricks. There were no more silver chains or grieving queens. Zeus and Hades decided on a punishment that would suit a man who thought his mortal will could overcome the gravity of the universe. Sisyphus was cast into the deepest, most echoing shadow of Tartarus and presented with a colossal, jagged boulder of black obsidian. His task was deceptively simple: push the stone to the very summit of a steep, crumbling mountain, and his soul would finally find its rest. But the stone was cursed with the weight of his own hubris. Every time Sisyphus reaches the final inch, every time he feels the warmth of the summit's light on his face, the stone slips. It crashes back down to the dark valley below, a thundering roar of failure that echoes through the abyss forever. He is forced to start over, again and again, in a cycle without end. We often think of him as a tragic victim, but look closer at his eyes as he walks back down the mountain. He is the master of his own torment. Every step he takes is a defiance of the heavens. He is the king who looked at death and made it blink, and in that eternal, absurd struggle, Sisyphus remains the only man in history who is truly free.